Hi, hello, welcome back. Today so first of all, last time we talked about regions and biomes generation. We talked about the regions points that are generated in every region. And this is a kind of a continuation of that for a specific purpose. So yeah, today the video is about pre-generation. So what is that? So first, I guess the discussion should be about finite map. sorry, finite map versus infinite maps, because by instinct, when people think about blocky games, like a game starting with the letter M, they think about infinite worlds, so you can walk forever, and the world is like the map is going to keep generating new elements, and you can walk forever. It's not actually true. You can eventually reach the end, but you will be very old in real life if you do that. Older than when you started. Anyway, it's fine to do this, but I don't think it should be the default approach that people think when they do this kind of games. In my opinion, it's actually better to do finite maps. And I'm going to very briefly talk about why right now, but it's, I guess, a bigger topic. And this is directly related to pre-generation. So don't worry, I'm not just rambling about random things. So why would you want a finite map? Like, when you think about infinite maps, it's cool, right? You think about infinite worlds and you can go on forever and ever and ever. But to me, what makes these kind of games cool is what you can do in them, right? It sounds obvious, but some people, I guess, lose track of what's important sometimes. So, to push to the extreme, what if you have a very boring generation? If you have a very boring generation and a very boring game, making this boredom infinite is not going to improve anything. It's just, infinite boredom. That doesn't sound so cool, right? So to me, the priority is to make interesting maps, not to make the biggest map ever. So yeah, the point I'm trying to make is that we should focus on making things look great and be interesting instead of trying to make the biggest, greatest world ever. And so I think it's way easier. Not only it's easier to make interesting worlds when you have a finite map, but it's also also going to be much richer because you can. We're going to discuss this briefly in this video, but having finite map, allows you to do a lot of things that you cannot absolutely cannot do by definition if you are in an infinite world. And on the topic of endless maps, I shall mention that while in my project at least I'm going to mostly be using finite maps, it's still going to be an infinite world in a sense because there are various ways to achieve endless worlds. Instead of trying to make this one map endless, what if you can just allow the player to jump on different maps that are themselves individually not endless, but if you still give the opportunity to the player to just generate new maps all the time seamlessly in the same game, then you still achieve in a way an endless experience, and you increase, in my opinion, the quality of the actual game by having the map be actually interesting instead of just a bunch of random noises. Because a lot of companies and even indie developer make a big fuss about procedural stuff, but procedurality and procedural noises and procedural generation are not the end of the game. It's just a tool to to achieve a result. It's not a result in itself. It's just a tool, right? It's not because you made like an infinite boring map that it's good. It's just boring forever. That's the only thing different. So yeah, procedurality is cool, but very often you can achieve much better and more interesting result by not having to rely on consistently endless generation. Anyway, it's just a discussion, I guess. I guess people have different opinions about that. But at least in my project, I'm not going to do that, because I think it's going to be a poor generation or infinite crap. Anyway, I'm going to stop. Anyway, so now back to the topic of pre-generation. Pre-generation is one thing that having finite maps enables for us. And so I kind of touched a bit on that regarding biome generation in the previous video, about how I wanted biomes to be their own entities that we can name, and to give them an actual I was going to say personality, but I don't want to go as far as that. It's just I don't want people to just stumble upon a forest and it's just forest number 3 and there's the same trees that I saw in the previous forest for some reason, and it looks very similar. It's just not different. So I want to be able to give more uniqueness to the elements that make up the world, and having a finite map and pre-generating stuff is a very efficient way of achieving that. And so I'm going to play now. So now we're back in Unreal, and I'm going to play on this map, and you can see in the log a lot of things are happening in the background right now, and I'm actually pre-generating stuff. And what we're seeing right now is not the chunk meshes that we were seeing up until now in the previous videos. These are just like preview meshes for the regions. So in the previous video, we talked about how I was generating region points, and how one attribute of these points was the elevation, so the height. And so this is what we're seeing right now. We're just seeing a mesh representation of the height of the region points. So we are not talking about blocks. Like, this is a very, very, very big scale that we're seeing right now. So we are seeing the whole map. So this map is almost 5,000 chunks wide in both axes. So right now we are extreme, like it's an extreme scale. Like I cannot show you the chunks right now because I disabled them just for the sake of this video, so I don't trigger a lot of generation. But yeah, this is like an enormous, gigantic scale that we are seeing right now. And so what are we actually seeing here? Because we have a bunch of colors, weird stuff going on. So these are just the meshes of the regions, as I was mentioning, the 2D regions. I am not doing 3D generation. That will be way too expensive. I'm just generating... I was mentioning 2D region generation in the previous video. And this is all that the pre-generation step does. Not really, but it's just generating all the 2D regions of the map at the start of the game. Actually quite fast. As you can see, this took 2 seconds, which, I mean, I didn't even optimize this code at all. Like, it could be, I'm sure if I really wanted to optimize it, it could be faster than that, like twice as fast. So 1 second, 2 seconds, like, it doesn't matter, right? I really don't mind if the player has to wait a couple of seconds before being able to play on a new map. It's really nothing for the amount of benefit that I get from it. It's really, really, really cheap. And so let's just talk about what we're seeing on the screen right now. The whole map again. So this is the terrain. This is like the elevation of the map. If you look in here, it's actually quite flat compared to the total scale, which is, expected. For example, what we have in front of us is a continent. So the first step of the pre-generation is to generate ocean and continent. So it's just looking up the elevation. We have basically water level at 0, elevation 0. It's not actually 0, but it's just for the sake of explaining. So at 0, below 0 is ocean, above 0 is continent. That's pretty straightforward, right? And so this is what we are looking at here. So I'm not going to mention the color yet, but this is like a big continent, big continent, big continent, and in between, like, these are the oceans. One very quick thing about this is that, again, as you may remember from if you watched previous videos, my maps are looping. So if you look at this, for example, the purple bit of continent, it's actually the other side of this. So this pre-generation obviously works with the looping map. So this here we have a blue chunk of continent. It's just the other side of this. It's just like if you're working with looping map as well, you just have to remember that. Just like with the chunks, the regions also need to be generated with a looping system. Otherwise, it's going to look weird. Anyway, so that was just a side note. When I'm generating oceans, so let's talk about ocean first. So oceans, you need also when you loop, for example, to make sure that the other side is also part of this same ocean. Ocean and continent. So these are the two biggest entities. It's just land versus water, basically. And by the way, the noises and stuff, like I just made up. I think it's a quite nice noise for continent. Continents might look a bit weird, but this is because we are like right now we are a plane very, very high in the sky, so we can see that, but the player will never really see the shapes. But anyway, I think they look quite cool. So this is the first step, and if we look at the it's doing a bunch of things. So based also on this, do I have any sea in this map? No. Should I try showing you a sea? Okay, let's just generate a new map. Yeah, it's already done. As you can see, it's quite fast. Just disregard the points. I just wanted to try and show you a sea, so an enclosed sea. It's not that important, honestly. I'm just going to try another time and another map, and if it doesn't work, that's fine. I mean, if I don't have any sea, it's fine. Okay. Quite a very big continent in here. Nice. Okay, I actually don't like this map. The continent is too big. Okay, one last time for sure. Oh yes, nice. So I have a sea. So the sea is just an enclosed ocean basically, but because it's enclosed, it's now been converted to a sea. Actually, we can't really see that on the screen, but basically it's just two different entities. So this is a sea, this is an ocean. The only difference between an ocean and a sea is that the ocean is touching the border of the map. Because if the ocean doesn't touch the border of the map, it means it's completely enclosed by land. It's a very cheap way of defining that. You might be tempted to like do some float fill algorithm to find out whether there is land, but actually the cheapest way is just to check, do you have any region bordering the border of the map? If yes, then you are an ocean. That's it. Cool. So yeah, that's what's one aspect. And if you take a look at the log, you can see a bunch of things about different types of entities. We have seas, for example, but the blue thing is, it should be a sea, but it's so small that I've converted this to a lake. At this point, lake, sea, ocean don't really have any difference in terms of gameplay because there is no gameplay yet. But later on, it's going to have a slight impact. For example, oceans, because again, I will be talking about this throughout the video, but it's about the many benefits of pre-generation. For example, I'm pre-generating ocean, so I could, if I wanted to, generate like ocean currents. So because I know everything about this ocean, I know where it is, where it's at, which continent it borders, I can generate like flow and ocean streams and this kind of stuff. And for example, this is something that would not, for example, happen for just simple lakes, because lakes are, or even seas, like I don't know if in real life seas have really big current of streams like the oceans do. So it's the kind of thing that you can do when you are pre-generated map. We talked about ocean, seas, and stuff, but it's kind of the same for the continents. The green ones should be continents, but they're so small that I've just made them islands instead. So yeah, this right there is an island as well. Everything that is flashy green, ugly green is an island. And I can't show you right now with the colors, but islands right now we have like, this is like, again, we have very, very big scale. This is like multiple chunks in real maps. So all of these, like this is one island, this is one island, this is one island, and all of these are also packed by proximity into an archipelago entity. So again, for the same reason, like it's something that the pre-generation can give you. It's that you can do this kind of operation. You can group islands together to make them part of an archipelago. I don't even know yet what I'm going to do in terms of gameplay with this, but you get it's very useful data that you cannot get from a purely infinite map, because let's say you are not pre-generating anything and we are here, the player starts here. At this point, if you just generate this area around the player, you don't know about this. You don't know that this is an ocean. You don't know if it's a sea or an ocean. You don't know shit when you're doing an infinite map. So yeah, it's very useful to me to make like coherent world and get more out of your procedural work, rather than just blindly generating step by step, like block by block almost, the map blindly without really knowing what's at the other side. And I guess the final main entity is the coastline. So I'm generating the coastline between continent and oceans, even if the coastline is technically part of the continent. So this is the red stuff right now. Again, this is super useful because you can then generate generate, like, for example, beach biomes, forcing beach biomes to be generated here. Whereas when you just rely on procedural noises, you end up with stuff like beaches. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry if I offend anyone. No, I'm just kidding. Beaches in the middle of a snow terrain and a desert with a red beach in the middle, which is kind of strange because you don't have control over this. Like you just try to guess when you are working with infinite map and noises. You just basically blindly guess stuff. Okay, so there should be probably a beach here, but yeah, you don't really know. And also this means that I could, if I wanted to, with the help of some noise, maybe convert a beach to a cliff-like transition instead of sandy beach. So again, I'm sorry if I just keep saying this during the video, but yeah, it's all of these benefits from the pre-generation step. And also something very important, I don't know if I'm actually going to do it, but it's something I wanted to do. With coastlines generation, you can, because right now we're seeing just red stuff, but the coastline is an entity, like in the game code, is actually an entity that knows about all the coastline region sets. And so what I can extract from that is a direction or a mask. So what that means is I could, if I wanted to, generate waves that cross against the beach in the right direction. So, I don't know if it's going to be implemented or not. It's not that interesting, but it's something I could do, and I've thought about it a bit. Because I know everything about this. I know that I know the direction that the beach is facing, the coastline is facing. So I could, if I wanted to, generate some waves crashing on the beach in the right direction. Which will be almost impossible if I didn't pre-generate. And finally, I think I need to talk about the colors now, because I said, for example, this is a continent, but why would this part be yellow and why would this part be blue? Like they're connected, they're the same continent, right? That is true, but as part of this step, and it's the same for the ocean. I'm going to talk about the ocean just after that. But I'm actually trying to do a bit like, I mean, this map is not the greatest example, but I'm trying to kind of replicate our true world, our planet. For example, continents in our definition are not necessarily separated by water. You have continents that are just connected by very tiny pieces of land, and so that's what I'm trying to kind of replicate. So there is a shrinking step going on. So after I've identified this one piece of connected land, I just do a shrinking step to basically erase all the tiny, like very thin pieces of land that connect to bigger pieces of land. So if you remember the regions point, all of this, by the way, I did not mention it, but all of this is based on the regions point, right? So if you just imagine that these are the regions points, when you shrink, when you just, I don't know if you know what I mean by that, but yeah, when you shrink stuff, it's going to naturally create gaps on the parts that's where it's the thinnest. And so once you shrink and then you recompute the connectivity, you end up with these elements that are kind of separated, but not really. And by the way, it looks quite bad here. It's because of the nature of the regions, but this is not a problem. Like the player is never going to see this. This is just for debug, by the way. So it's just a macro level of data. I don't need this to be per block precise. Like I really don't care about that. It's not important. So this is more than good enough for me. Do we have any other example? I should show you, for example, the very first map we did. By the way, it generated almost instantly because I'm saving the pre-generation on disk. I'm going to mention that at the end of the video. So this one is a good example because all of these three big continents are actually one continent. They are connected by land, but they are connected by very thin pieces of land. So what I just mentioned about shrinking it's in action here. You can see it's getting connected on logical, very thin parts of the ocean of the continent. So it kind of makes sense. It's a bit like our planet. Like we do at least the humans we do consider some continents to be different continents, even though they're actually linked by land. This one is different. I'm going to mention it in a couple of seconds. But first about this, one thing I'm also doing while doing this step, because I keep track of the actual regions points that have been used to make this separation. The reason is that I'm creating a isthmus entity in here, so I know that this is a very thin piece of land that connects two continents, and actually maybe more importantly, that connects to oceans. And so it might never be used, but let's say I want to generate some kind of civilization that can construct things. I might want to keep track of this information. So let's say for some reason the civilization like our human civilization, we did build some, for example, the Panama Canal. It's a very thin piece of land that we built. We carved out, and so just to make a connection between two oceans to, improve traffic and commercial traffic. I mean, and so it's something that I could do now. Let's say I want to make some kind of procedural civilization that builds stuff. They can decide now. They know that now this area is very thin, so if they want, they can carve a giant canal here and connect to ocean. So it's this kind of stuff that I really wanted to do in this game, and so this is why pre-generating is so useful for me, because this you can't really. I mean, you can generate this on the fly in a way, but it's never going to be as good as just pre-generating this information. Anyway, so now let's go to this guy here. So this guy is not actually a continent. is just a peninsula. Again, it's just a different type of entity. So for the same reason, with the same mechanism, I'm just generating peninsula. So this is part of the same continent as the purple one, but it's sub entity basically. It's now a peninsula. So if I want to generate a procedural map that the player can see in game, for example, I could tag this as a peninsula, and it's just, it's not important, but it's nice. It's nice to have this this extra level of detail. It's something that happens in real life. So I wanted to check that sense. This is also a peninsula. It's a little bit more weird, but it doesn't matter. If you see it in a view, you will find it cool. I would find it cool at least. Anyway, so that's about continents mostly. And lastly, I think I can show you. You might have noticed these weird lines in the continents. It's actually terrible right now. I really did not spend much time on it. Oh my god. Just need to go in the continent. Yeah, it's going to now display the debug of these. So these are rivers. They look terrible right now because it's just a very, very dumb pathfinding. But it's actually maybe the most convincing argument for pre-generating, because in infinite maps, in most games that use like fully procedural worlds, like rivers are just nonsense. Like if you look at a river in a procedurally generated map in most games, it's not going to make any sense. Right now they don't make sense, so I should maybe shut up. Right now they don't make sense, but they will eventually. So what I mean by that is that, in real life, river will get their source from high elevation areas, and then they will, flow down and get into the ocean or the sea. That's basically how it works. That's what I will eventually do. But obviously, if you are using a fully infinite world, by definition, you do not know about the rest of the world. So you do not know where the high elevation are. You do not know where the sea and the oceans are. So, there is really no point in trying to make a semi-realistic river. So that's also what the pre-generation step will allow. Right now it looks like garbage. It's just a proof of concept. And so, and just also, so once you have this information, you can lower the elevation around the river to make water flow in it. And you can even, so the river entity, what we're seeing, like the debug blue points, these are points, by the way, the region points. The debug blue points are part of this river entity, which is like an actual class in the code. And so this river knows about which ocean it is connected to, what's the source. It knows about this flow direction. So let's say, for example, for some reason, at some point, a player or a civilization creates a wall in here. I could, if I wanted to, tell the river to stop flowing from this point. So it's actually quite nice to be able to do that. It has other complications, obviously, that I'm not going to mention, but that's basically the gist of it. So you can generate rivers. Maybe I could go to another continent to show maybe other rivers. I mean, the rivers looks terrible. Oh, it crashed. No, it didn't crash. So I mean, again, right now it's a very, very dumb pathfinding algorithm with some random start and ending points on the coastline. So it doesn't really make sense. But hopefully you can see like how powerful pre-generating the map is. If you have, it depends on your need. Like everything that I mentioned, maybe you're going to think like, it's cool, but it's really not interesting. But to me it is, and it's what I wanted to do. So it's just the building blocks for that. And similarly, like right now we're talking about rivers, but you might want to generate any kind of, other natural or non-natural elements in the pre-generation step to alter the actual generation around it. Let's say you want to manually, not manually, but without relying on, or on randomness too much, like place a volcano in here. The volcano will have an impact around it, so you can, alter the elevation, change the temperature or whatever, moisture, etc. Cool. And also, actually talking about moisture, temperature, and blah, 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 and the river also, because I know where the rivers are now, same for the lakes, and same actually for the sea, the whole ocean. All these entities, rivers, sea, ocean, lakes, all these water entities will also, after they've been generated, they will influence the moisture around them. So now we can't see it because I don't have any debug way of doing it, or of showing you, but right now this river is actually increasing the moisture around it. Same for the ocean, like the ocean will naturally increase the moisture on the land that it touches. So it's going to have an impact on the generation of the things on land, like for example vegetation. You will have more vegetation around rivers, this kind of stuff. So yeah, all of this is promising. Right now it's just debug, so there is no actual impact on the generation or on the gameplay yet, but it will be for sure. And yeah, so that's why I think if you're doing these kind of games, depending on your goals, you should definitely consider whether you want an finite map or an infinite map, because I think it's a big decision, and there are just so many advantages to pre-generating. You still want, again, as I was saying at the beginning, it's super slow. Okay, if you still want to, I just wanted to prove that the map does loop for real. If you still want infinite worlds, as I was saying at the beginning, you can give ways to the player to jump to other maps. For example, you can imagine that the player is like a space traveling person with a spaceship, and you can just jump on different planets. And the planets themselves are not infinite, but the world, like there are an infinite amount of planets to visit. So I don't think you should restrict yourself with just having one giant big map that is actually extremely boring to visit. Just have many different nice looking planets. Okay, yeah. I think that's it. Actually, something else I need to mention is about saving, because I did not mention that in the previous video, but each region gets saved to disk once it has been generated once, because we don't want to have to regenerate it every time the player moves. However, as I was mentioning at the beginning of this video, the pre-generation step is basically generating every region of the whole map, and so depending on the size of the map, you might end up with like a lot of files to save. So you don't actually need to save these pre-generated regions to the disk, because the only point of pre-generating them is to run these steps of detecting the ocean, the continents, the lakes, etc. So once this whole step is done, you only need to do it once, by the way. You just save the entities themselves. So the entities will just hold the list of regions that they are part of. And then you just save this as a single file, and then you're done. You don't need to save the regions. So this whole step just generates one file, and this file you can just load it at the beginning of the game, and that's it. You just generate this one file once, and then you're done. So yeah, pretty much happy with that. It's going to be very useful for the future. Yeah, thanks for watching, and hopefully it all makes sense. But yeah, cool. See you next time.